everyone? Mark Lobliner, TigerFitness.com, and I brought a special guest to help me explain this to y'all. My man Kevin DeHaven from BPI Sports. Why? Because I will go on the record as saying you and I probably popularized the road warrior position within this industry. We were the first to really get out there and hustle. Well, aside from Eric Hillman and Compton.
Back in the day.
That's old school. I mean, we're old, but they're really old, right? Hillman's gonna send me like a friggin' mail bomb.
They still look good though.
No, they still look great. They look great because they did the hustle and they made some money. Now, speaking of money, I get this email every day, and I'm sure you get it even when you go to the gym. Hey, Mark. Hey, Kevin. I want to get in this industry. How do I get a job in the supplement industry? And what I'd like to do here, and this might be a 30-minute video because I have a lot to fucking say. So get your popcorn, and get ready to listen to some shit or turn this off right now. What it takes to get a job in the supplement industry, and then I'll go into what really happens when you have a job. I posted a picture of me playing football with Jay Cutler today. Yeah. But he's like, oh, tough life, tough life. We have fun. We do some shit. But we're going to get into the nitty gritty of, let's say you do get that job, what it entails. Now, first of all, I'm going to lead off with how to get a job in the supplement industry, the same way you get a job in the makeup industry, in the auto industry, in the porn industry. You network and you send your resume in and you meet people, you go to industry functions and you start at the ground level and you get an entry level position, be it in the warehouse, in the mailroom, in sales, and you do that. As far as education, if you're an accountant, you go for a job in the accounting department. It's like any other industry. We have departments. We have HR, we have accounting, we have sales, we have marketing. There's many different positions within larger companies. Obviously, smaller companies, many people wear many hats. Now, those are just the backgrounds of what background you need and how to get a job. Now, Kevin, what do you find like getting in this industry?
Well, first of all, I do get asked that question all the time, as you do. Emails, people always asking how they can get in. From the outside looking in, this looks like the best job in the world, and it actually is probably the best job in the world. I would agree with that.
We have a great fucking time.
Yeah, there's a lot of work involved in getting to where I've gotten and where we've gotten, but it is a fantastic industry to work in. But as far as getting started, just like Mark's saying, you got to start somewhere. You got to network. You got to send in a resume. It depends on what you're trying to do. Initially, if you want to get in, I'm always asked, how can I be a sales rep? How can I be an outside rep? And that's about getting out there and really getting your information to the companies. With anything else, the more experience you have, the better off you're going to be. For myself, I got started about 20 years ago working in a retail store. So I spent 4 years working in a retail store. Then I was given an opportunity to go work in distribution, which was with Europa Sports Products. And then from there I went to work for another manufacturer for about 12.5 years, and now I've been with BPI for the last 3.5. But the more experience you have going into something, the better. But if it's sales you want to get into and you can't get a job right into sales within one of the manufacturers in this industry, get some type of sales job where you're interacting with people, yes, where you learn to communicate. I know one of the biggest things I see when I'm trying to hire a younger person is they've got all these skills and all this knowledge and all this information, and they're talented in many areas, but one area that's lacking is in being able to interact and communicate with people as opposed to devices. So
yeah, the Twitter generation is absolutely, from our standpoint, as people who, I believe I walked into 1 year over 1,200 stores. Right. The Twitter generation...
He's got me beat by far, just so y'all know.
I had a run. I had a run. But dude, we both, and that we'll get into that later, but the Twitter generation, you have to realize that when we walk into stores, we don't tweet them, we don't text them, we do it in over 160 characters. You got to learn those interpersonal skills. So you're not going to just jump in to a $200,000 sales manager role immediately. You're going to start at the ground level, and I suggest one way to do that, if you're a kid in high school or college, Christmas jobs at a retail store when they're hiring, anytime you can interact with people if sales is your goal. Now, of course, if you're in accounting or if you're in HR, it doesn't, you do your position, you just apply for it within the industry. But if you're looking to get into what we do, well, most of my job is sales oriented. But at the end of the day, I also obviously manage, but you manage things too. You're running a sales department.
Yeah, definitely. it's challenging at times, but there is a lot of opportunity. I mean, I've got a team of 12 outside sales reps. They're all over the country and the territories that really need and require somebody to be on the street and in the field. We've got 8 guys in-house. So, there's sales at a lot of different levels. And then we have some guys that start at customer service. So any of you guys out there who are looking for like an entry-level position, when you're talking to companies, I mean, customer service is a great place to start. Right. But as Mark suggested, if you're trying to get your foot in the door, be willing to go to the warehouse. Be willing to take whatever job you can to start getting your foot in the door and moving up the ranks. But the way it happens here, usually if it starts at customer service, then we either move them to inside sales and potentially or possibly outside sales. A lot of the outside sales guys have experience, and we're looking for a specific territory. But yeah, it's managing all those people and making sure that they have what they need to do a good job is and can be a challenge at times. But I think here I'm really fortunate with BPI because we have the resources available to let people be successful. But as far as really getting started, looking the part, playing the part, having some social media presence and some following can help you if you're just looking to be an athlete, and could also help you if you're looking to get into sales. But the social skills, I guess, is what I see that a lot of people lack. A lot of younger people, I'll say. So getting out there and, like Mark suggested, working anywhere and interacting face-to-face with people. So when you get an opportunity to get in a position of sales or customer service and you're going out and talking to people or on the phone, you're just better. You have more tools in your tool belt, really.
And to expand on that, for Tiger Fitness, everyone starts in the warehouse. No matter what position you're going to, everybody needs to start at that level and work their way up. So that's how we build our corporate culture. Everybody knows every position within the company, and that's how we're gonna keep it. And also, for those of you emailing me for a job, 2 things. One is we're in Mason, Ohio, so unless you're willing to relocate at your cost, and willing to obviously take a job in the warehouse, that's number 1. Number 2 is if you send me an email, spell check that bitch. Nothing's worse than someone asking, "Hey bro, you hiring?" That's your intro email to prospective employer. I mean, that's disgusting how many of those I get a day, and it makes me just dumbfounded that anyone would do that. So, okay, let's assume you get the job in the industry. You got your dream job. Well, we have more. I believe we have a lot of good stories, but I think both of us have a lot of really shitty stories about life on the road and about banging the streets. And it was funny, I was talking to one of my guys, and he literally was working in someone's house in the basement because that's where they can afford to go. It was a startup company. You've obviously done your job on the road. I had a budget where I'd stay at $50 a night hotel rooms, and there'd be like mirrors on the ceiling and chalk outlines on the floor, and I stayed within that budget. I drove my Toyota Corolla around the country and built a company, and that's what it takes to start a company. Another thing, before you get into what really happens with you and Cutler and the bus tour and all that, let's say you get to that level, before getting into that, I get a lot of people go, "Hey, I want to start a supplement company. What should I do?" You've been in this industry how long? Do you own a company?
Nope.
Why not?
Why not?
Yeah.
Haven't had the opportunity, and because it requires a lot of capital.
Capital, that's it. Unless you have $1 million, don't even think about starting a company, and you're willing to lose that $1 million because 70 to 90% of all new companies fail.
Absolutely.
So you're on the road with Jay. Let's say you get this job. Is it all fun and games? You just sit around playing fucking Pac-Man and...
Absolutely fucking not.
Yeah. Yeah.
Here's one of the things I get the most from my friends and peers and stuff is they see us go and work the Arnold or the Olympia. Oh, that's fucking great. Well, it is. It is great.
It is.
We're standing in a booth, me personally, with the number 1 or one of the top supplement companies in the country, in the world.
And they got some hot chicks at their booth.
Hot chicks.
That one year, what was that year that me and Shay, our meeting went nowhere.
We had a meeting a couple years ago at the Arnold. Mark paid no attention to anything.
I have no idea. All I know is that I have no clue what happened.
But, it is a great time, and it is a great opportunity. And I tell people all the time, anytime I catch myself starting to bitch or complain, I'm like, there's a lot worse things I could be doing to make a living. And that's the truth, and that's the way I feel. But to go back to the shows, what you guys see if you go on the internet and you see a couple pictures of a booth that's packed with hot chicks and free samples and all this excitement, what you don't see is showing up the day before the show and working for 15 hours to set the booth up.
Yeah.
What you don't see is everybody getting there an hour before the show starts and being there an hour and a half after the show starts, because once the booth is ravaged all day. You got to replenish all the product and make it look presentable for the next day. What you don't see is that happen again on the second day. And what you don't see is that happen again on the third day. And what you don't see is on day 4, you spend another 12 hours tearing the booth down. This last show we had 16 pallets to rework, wrap, and ship once we got the booth down. So it is a lot of work. And even, the outside rep guys, I make sure when I'm talking to a potential outside rep, I'm like, you understand this isn't an 8-hour day job.
No.
I mean, it's a 12-hour day job. Mark and I know, and these guys got a little different because they got a set territory. What Mark and I have done, and what Mark has done much more than me over the years, is taken off for weeks at a time, like Jay does, and he's just gone. These guys still have to do a lot there. They still got 10 or 12 stops a day. They're 12-hour days. Again, doing something that they love makes it a lot easier. But as far as Jay Cutler,
wow,
that's a whole different level. This guy has been living out of a suitcase for basically the last 20 years. And I can tell you about a year and a half ago, we did the bus tour, which was very cool. We got a motorhome, logoed it up, and we went around the country. And the boss man told me to hit the entire country, and that's what we did. We started in South Florida, and we worked our way all the way up the coast and came across, worked our way up into Minnesota, and then over to obviously Northern California, down and back through Texas and New Orleans, and then came back across to Florida. But the very first week we left here, we hit 3 stops. We were in Jacksonville, Florida. We buckled up and we drove 8 hours to get to Fayetteville, North Carolina. And you're in this bus that's shaking around. I remember the first night Jay came out of his room and he goes, "Did you get any sleep?" And I'm like, "Hell no, man, I was terrified this thing was going to flip over." He goes, "Yeah, me too." So it's a long day, no sleep. And this guy stands there at all these appearances. And we had one yesterday, as a matter of fact. For 4.5 hours, this guy shook hands, took pictures, kissed babies, and talked product, training, and supplements. Didn't go to the bathroom once, didn't eat anything. I don't know if he took more than 2 sips of water. So he is just the ultimate road warrior. And, again, he's doing something that he loves, but constantly living out of a suitcase and spending very little time at home. It can be trying and taxing on anybody, but...
Yeah, and if you have, family at home, that's another thing. I mean, to sacrifice to make a company work. I missed both my kids' first steps, both my first kids. Preston, I saw it. I was there, that little fat bastard just ran across the room. I'm like, yeah, I got this one. But, to make any business successful, and this doesn't just go for this industry. This is just for everybody looking to be successful in life and in business. Again, like he said, there's no 8-hour day. If you want to be successful, you're the first one to come and the last one to leave. Okay? Next thing you got to look at is if you want to be successful, you need to be willing to make that sacrifice. And some things have to be sacrificed. You know what? Jay won all he won while working his ass off, and that's also why he's one of the most successful bodybuilders there is. He didn't just go to the gym and play video games all day and wait for money to come in. He went out there and he put on a hustle. It's all about your hustle. It's all about how much you hustle. I'm not talking about ripping people off. I'm talking about throwing down the hustle. That means putting in work. Yeah. And all of us here have put in work. If you look at the successful people in the industry, there's a couple douchebags who got by easily. I'll give you that. But for the most part, the guys who you see at the top of the food chain, those are the guys who were sleeping in their car. Those are the guys who almost lost everything, which I can definitely say was me at one point. And those are the guys who really just put in the work and got on the road and made it happen. And that's what we want to get across is you see this whole, and we're just going over trade shows. We're not talking about every day going into, I used to average 10 to 12 stores at least a day, driving, ping-ponging, I'd call it, across the country. Yeah. And you'd go into some stores and you'd have some clerk, some 19-year-old punk at GNC tell you you're a piece of shit. And you have to get the humility and be humble and just shake his hand and walk out of the door.
Instead of beating his ass.
Which is my inclination.
Smile. Which
is exactly what I wanted to do. And you walk out, and hopefully later on he gets fired, and you end up selling the brand in and moving your product.
That's it.
That's what the hustle is all about. And then you combine it with the consumer side, which is the trade shows. And let's say you work in an office. I mean, if you want to make it in America or in any country or in any industry, you need to outperform your peers. And that's something that a lot of people just don't want to do. I mean, we were talking about the younger generation earlier. It just seems that drive to be, everybody gets a fucking trophy now. Yep. Look, in my day, it's Survivor. It's just like that show. You get voted off the fucking island if you don't succeed.
Exactly right.
And, that's the thing that separates the people in this industry who make it versus people who fail. Yep. Is just that drive and that work ethic. And there's a lot of there's a few hustlers left, but it's a dying breed. It's a dying breed. When people talk about Kevin, I'm like, he's a dying breed. I was just talking to you. I was just talking to you the other day.
I'm dying half the time.
Yeah, but that's I mean, is there anything else? I mean, we didn't go over. I mean, that's pretty much. I just want to get across that it's a great industry,
Absolutely.
but it's like any other industry. But once you get in any industry, it's not a fucking game.
And these days, even more so than ever before. I mean, hard work pays off, and you know, people who are willing to put in that hard work usually do well and are successful. Doesn't mean they get everything they want or they got everything they dream, but they're usually successful and they do well. And you know, it comes from just getting out there and grinding it out, like Mark's talking about. And you know, as far as you know, finding a job in this industry, one thing we didn't touch on. I get these questions, and like you do all the time, wanting a job. Guys, you have to find a company that's kind of in your area. There's not a lot of companies that can use you if you're in Tupelo, Mississippi, and the company's in Florida. So a lot of times it has to do with location and where you're located. And you know, there's some hotbeds for supplement companies, which would be Florida and California and Texas.
Yeah.
But that's also part of it. And then the other thing, I get this even more than the employment piece, is people that want to be sponsored athletes.
Yeah.
You know? God. And what I can tell you there is, again, there has to be some return on investment, as Mark and I always talk about.
All about ROI.
You know, it's great if a guy comes to us or a girl comes to us and she looks great or you look great and you competed in a show or you won some local show or even a bigger show. But what can you do to help that company bring some dollars back? How are you going to help them sell product? Because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
We're not paying you to be pretty, and we're not paying you for fucking charity.
We're all pretty.
Well, yeah, we're fucking pretty. I mean, but at the end of the day, we're paying you to bring a return on investment.
Yeah.
Or we're compensating you or paying for your shows or sending you supplements. So if you can't provide an adequate return on investment, you're not worth our time.
Yeah, and those are the same people, you know, those of you or those people that are out there looking to be an athlete or a sponsored athlete, you have to be willing to also work. Like if the company wants you to do a demo, show up early, stay late. Make sure you're educating everybody that walks through that door, whatever store you're at or whatever event you're at, on that company's product. Active sampling. You got to make consumers out there a fan of that product so that they go back and go, wow, John did a fantastic job. He was a nice guy, and that product tastes good. I'm going to go buy a bottle. Because at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, that's also a gateway in the door. I mean, look at Rob from my old company. He started as a sponsored athlete, and then he became our VP.
Yep.
So that's something. I mean, look, guys, we appreciate you listening. This is just something I'm going to actually probably, if you're getting this, if you're seeing this, I probably copied and pasted it to you because you asked me this question. I'm dead serious. This is why I wanted to do this. And there's not a better person I could have brought in to help me answer this than Kevin, because, I mean, we've seen every end of the industry, from distribution to sales to manufacturing, you name it. Yep. So that's it, man. Dude, I appreciate your time, man.
Yeah, brother.
All right.
It's always good to talk.
Well, thanks for watching, guys. And remember, you know what? I have nothing to say other than don't be a lazy fuck, because that's not a game.